In other places in the past, we actually shut down people's ability to create new accounts because we were seeing evidence of people creating accounts even though they were not going to be long-term users. They were just joining to harass our users in that country. And so shutting down temporarily the ability to create accounts was a way to limit that until that situation was resolved. But obviously, there's always more that we want to do. One of the big things we're thinking about is how do we engage the governments that are supportive a lot more, whether that's the U.S. government or European governments, to try to help us in places where there are challenges. That's something we're working on with the hire that we're looking for now to head up our government affairs, because there's a ton of opportunity for Grindr to partner with governments that are supportive to advocate for people in countries where they're not supported in the way that they should be.
I am curious, George, about how you protect the data that you have collected. I mean, we talk a lot about some of these incidents, which are very much in the here and now. But let's say a year from now, someone is detained, their phone is searched, and that data is available to that government or to those authorities in some way or another. Have you guys thought about ways that maybe there is a way to either anonymize or to protect that data in some way from these sort of forced breaches down the road?
Yeah, so Grindr gives a lot of control over privacy to our users. We don't require you to have a photo. We ask you minimal information about you before you create an account, and that's on purpose. We actually, on purpose, don't do verification of a person's identity because so many of our users are discreet. Even in countries where acceptance is very high and tolerance is very high, a significant portion of our users choose to be discreet. Overall, about 30% of our users are choosing to be discreet for a variety of reasons, right? It could be political kind of challenges that you might face in that country and legal ones, or it could be purely that, hey, I don't want people to know that I'm on Grindr because of my job, and I'd rather stay discreet. So we make privacy a really big deal for our users because it is, and it's a matter of life and death for some of them. We also don't share any of your information with advertisers, which is obviously damaging to us from the revenue perspective, but we think it's really important because it protects users' privacy more. A lot of our users say, hey, can I have better ads in the app versus what I'm seeing? But a big reason why you don't see better ads is because we share so little information about you with third-party ad providers. So that's something we already take extremely seriously, and that is a really big deal for Grindr. Being privacy forward is something we've very much prided ourselves in because our users need it, and ever since I've been here, that's been a really big focus for us as well.
What type of questions have your users asked of you or asked of the company, particularly in response to some of these issues in countries where either you have explicit laws against this type of sexual behavior or even implicit laws that could potentially get them in trouble as well?
Yeah, so we actually oftentimes think about, should we stay in some of these countries or not? That is a question that comes up quite frequently because, you are there, but there's a lot of risk in being in that country. And what we hear from both users and NGOs in a lot of these places is that they would really prefer us not to leave. And if even more than that, in some of the countries where we don't operate, we have gotten requests coming in from users or potential users and nonprofits, activist groups in those countries saying, hey, can you please come into this country, even though you are not there today? Which to me, when I first joined Grindr, was a surprise. Like, I did not expect that. But what you hear ultimately is this is one of the few ways in which people can connect in this country, even though it's a really difficult place to live. And so we want you there because that is more important than the risk associated with being in that country or being on the app in that country. And so that's something we've heard a lot from users, and we take a lot of solace in that. And it's really awesome to be as important to users as we are. But obviously, we also take really seriously that we need to be really careful with what happens in those countries and try to help users as much as we can.
Yes, there's investors, but you have to depend on banking partners. You have people that work to help build your product. How has that been in the US and abroad?
Totally. That's been more interesting and surprising, frankly. When I was thinking about taking this job, my husband would warn me that, hey, you're going to experience things that you have not experienced before in business. And I was like, come on, in today's day and age, that should not happen. But it's been really surprising to see how much more kind of homophobic behavior there is and how it shows itself. With banking partners, for example, some banks have been amazing. We refinanced our debt last year, and JP Morgan led that process. We had 4 other big banks join them, and that was really amazing for those banks to put their money where their mouth is, and they're all very supportive in terms of kind of pronouncements and policies to our users at their corporations, and then for them to come around and also become our lenders, I think was really awesome, and I'm really happy about that. But at the same time, we did see a bunch of banks drop out of the process along the way for inexplicable reasons, and ultimately, I think that kind of how people perceive us had probably something to do with that. Now, that's in some ways depressing. On the other hand, it motivates me to do a better job in communicating our story and getting more people to understand what we do and why we are an awesome company to support.